Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Balancing Heaven and Earth here on the Star Nations Radio Network. This is Denise Iwaniw-Francisco, and I'm your host for this evening. An evening of sacred encounters and conversation about sacred encounters and some things that are holy and perhaps mysterious. So welcome to the show tonight. And as we enter this beautifully sacred space, I invite you to take a great big deep breath wherever you happen to be, and to bring yourself fully into the room, into your body. Hello, Lisa. It's great to see you this evening. Thank you for being here. And for those of you that, would like to, if you would do me the great good favor of sharing this broadcast with your friends, liking and sharing, that would be fantastic. Hey, Cindy Lynn. Hello, Sonia. Man, you made it over here quick. We were just with Sandra Herrick over on the Sandra Herrick Show, which was fantastic tonight. And I'm just going to share this very quickly so that we can include all of our friends in the show tonight. Make sure that we have everyone who is available. Very important. All right. Okay, get all of these little technicalities out of the way. All right. Here we are. Hey! Oh my goodness, how much fun are we going to have tonight with this conversation? I would say we're going to have a whole lot of fun with this conversation tonight. Hey, Stephen Schmidt and Jane. Oh my goodness, Cindy Lynn, Kelly, Rhonda in the house. Hey, it is really good to see everybody. Can you see me now, Rhonda? I'm going ahead and I am sharing all of these so that I can let everybody know that we are on. People find me in various places. And so I want to be sure to share so that we can all be together. All right. Mary Ellen, it's great to have you in the house as well. Hey, Kevin. Holly Hagan, good to see you. Jacqueline. Oh, my goodness. How fun is this, hey? We're going to have a wonderful conversation this evening about sacred encounters. And I would like to begin by thanking so many of you for ordering my new book, Prayers and Incantations to the Light, Blessings from the Mother. It is a book of prayers. It is a book of incantations. And those of you that ordered the hard copy version of the book in color, those arrived today from the printing house. And so they will be going out in the mail this coming week. And I'm really excited about that. I'm very excited about that. And, none of this would be possible if it weren't for all of you. Otherwise, I would just be writing for myself, which would be okay too, writing for myself. But it's way funner to write when you know that other people are enjoying what it is that you're writing. So thank you all for your support of my work and for all that you do to make my life, what it is, an adventure. My life is an adventure. I'm just going to leave it at that. Hey, Nikki Jorgensen, up there at the Heartful Art Studio in Big Rapids, Michigan. Okay, everybody, speaking of prayers and incantations to the light, well, I just had this little idea tonight because you know what? I get to celebrate this with all of you tonight. I have been waiting for almost 5 years for my first hard copy book to come out in print. 5 years, that's a long time because that's when I started with the manuscript, was 5 years ago. And I probably waited a whole lifetime for a hardcover book to be published. And so I get to celebrate this evening with all of you. And I can't imagine celebrating with a better group of friends than all of you upon the birth of my new book and its arrival here. So good evening, Sharon Blake. It is good to see you. Good to have you with us tonight. So this evening, I thought that we would do, well, a little something out of the book. Thank you for that, Cindy Lynn. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. All right. So there's a prayer in my new book, and it's called The Prayer for an Open Third Eye. And you know, our third eye, some people believe that the third eye is simply something that allows us just to see spirit. Actually, when we talk about a third eye, the third eye encompasses our entire body when we get right down to the brass tacks of it. There are some renditions of the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. And in those renditions of him, we see that the Buddha is covered in third eyes, thousands of third eyes. And so what perhaps the message in that is, as psychic sensitive beings, in other words, as soul sensitive people, our third eyes, our ability to see and to sense, is actually located all over the entirety of this physical vehicle that we have chosen to wear and to have our way in this lifetime. And so the third eye is much more than just the ajna, which is located right here between the brows in the center of the forehead, the ajna. So let's just take a look at this particular prayer. It's called An Open Third Eye. And so I'm going to invite you all to just take a deep breath. Deep breath in. For some people, they prefer to breathe in through their nose and breathe out through their mouth, and that's fine. My yoga instructor, Liz, likes it when we breathe in through our nose and breathe out through our nose. Whatever is comfortable for you, because we're entering into beautiful sacred conversation this evening. And so I invite you to oxygenate your body and to bring the divine intellect of the universe, the heart and mind of God, into your body in a conscious way. It feels good to breathe. Right, Nikki? To just breathe. And so here we are. You can listen to the words. You can repeat them within in your own mind, whatever you desire to do. All-seeing love of the universe, thank you for helping me to see my life, my experiences, my spirit, my soul, your angels, the ancients, and their timeless wisdom through your eyes, the eyes of unconditional love, that see within, without, and beyond the veil, that allow me to see all of the infinite expressions and experiences of you, which are me. Through you, I see all things clearly. And so it is. And so it is. Amen. I love this line. Through you, I see all things clearly. In other words, through our soul body connected to the Creator, which is the Creator in expression, we can see things clearly, all things clearly. So the misnomer that the third eye is just something that some people have and other people do not have, I would say that some people have a more attuned third eye. I call it the antenna. This human body is built to be psychic. The word psychic means of the soul. And I would say, that if you're listening to the show, you're watching and you're having a human experience, you have one of those things we call a soul. And so in some ways you are very psychic. Psychic isn't just about, Sister Chloe or whatever her name was with the turban wrapped around her head, that kind of a thing. It's much more sacred than that. It's far more sacred than that. This ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to feel, the ability to know, the ability to precognate, to know before something happens that it's going to happen, to intuit, to have a great business acumen. That in itself is also employing psychism or soulism, the gifts of the soul. The difference between, the average person that's just walking around and the person who is the sensitive, who is the seer, is that the seer is awake. The seer is awake. And what is the seer awake to? Tracy Civic. Hey, Tracy. Anybody in the thread here, we're going to have conversation tonight, just like we did last week. What does it mean to be awake? What are we awake to when we are an awakened seer? When the third eye is open, when the sensitivities are open in a good way, what are we awake to seeing? Well, hopefully one of the things that we're awake to seeing, number one, that we're related to everything in the universe, that everything in the universe is a messenger from the Creator, is an expression of the great mystery. And I believe that once we begin to understand that and we begin to wake up to that truth, what's a truth for me? I shouldn't say it is the truth, right? For me, it's the truth that everything in the universe is an expression of God, is an expression of the creative mind and intellect of the universe. In other words, everything is rather angelic, isn't it? Because every encounter, I believe, is a sacred encounter and a holy encounter. And sometimes it's holy smokes, isn't that marvelous? And sometimes it's holy crap, really? Did that just happen? And so for the seer, it's how we see what's happening. Do we look at it from the perspective of the eagle of Wambly? Right, the Wambly Oyate, the Eagle Nation that soars way up here and takes a look above? Or are we down scrapping around in the lowest vibration of who we are, trying to see up? How do we see things? Well, for the purpose of this evening's show in Sacred Encounters, recently I've had a lot of people coming to me in my practice saying to me, Denise, I've been having some experiences at home. I've had a couple of experiences outdoors in nature. I've had a couple of dream time experiences that I just cannot explain. What is going on? How can this possibly be going on in my life? I've just been living a normal life, and now all of a sudden, I'm having these encounters with what I think is spirit, what I think is sacred, what I think are relatives who have crossed over. A lot of people are now having these experiences, and some are able to explain them away by saying it's a coincidence, and others are stopping to say, wait a minute, there was something different about that encounter. And so I'd like to begin this evening by talking about angels. Angelics. One of my very favorite subject matters, angels. And you're right, Catherine Harrison, we are not ever alone. Yes, help, compassion, that's right. Teachers come in many forms, without a doubt. Thank you for that, Lady Hawk. Angels are an octave, a frequency that emanate out of the heart and mind of all of creation. By virtue of their name, they are messengers. Some would say that they live in the Devacanic realm, the higher octaves of existence, octaves beyond what we may term the astral plane. And by virtue of being messengers from the Devacanic realm, or the realm of light and sound that exist in the Sushuptic realm, that would be a whole fun show, wouldn't it, right there? Just the realms of stuff. Sometimes angels appear to us as people. Sometimes angels appear to us as animals. Sometimes angels appear to us as beautiful, bright lights. Sometimes angels appear to us as a feeling. They come to us as a warmth, a sense that everything is going to be okay. Sometimes they come to us as a sense of courage, of strength. Sometimes they come to us to uplift us so that we aren't so serious about ourselves and about our life. Years ago, I had a wonderful opportunity to work with a group of Lutheran youth in northern Michigan. And I was just recalling this story, a couple of weeks ago. Well, the youth pastor gave me a call and said, "Hey, Denise, the kids want to know if you'll come up here and talk to them about angels. It's not something that we typically talk about in this church. But, some of the kids are like, hey, we want to talk to that lady who knows all about angels because there's something going on and we want to know more about that." So I went up north, and it was blizzardy and it was snowy and the conditions were horrible. And yet before leaving, I knew that there was somebody that was going to be there that evening that needed to talk to me. And so I arrived, and the youth pastor brought me into the auditorium, and it was full of teenagers. And it was full of the teenagers' mothers that wanted to hear what this woman was going to talk to their kids about regarding angels. And we did that. I had more fun doing that, listening to the way that they described angelic encounters as young people. And Kelly Spencer is saying, I hear them in tones. Yes, some people hear them almost like a buzzing or a ringing in the ear. And oftentimes when somebody says to me, Denise, I've got this ringing in the ear, the doctor says it's not tinnitus, it's not any of those kind of things, nobody knows what it is. Sometimes I'll just say, well, perhaps it's angels, angelic guidance that's trying to come through. So maybe all you need to say is, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to teach me? And then the most important part after asking those questions is to pay attention to the way in which the message is delivered. You see, sometimes angels will speak to us just like I'm speaking to you. If you've ever had that happen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes they will say your name right out loud. They will just say it right out loud, and there's no denying that somebody somewhere said something, but that somebody somewhere is not in the present room with you, but somebody said your name. And it doesn't sound like a relative who crossed over, so Denise, am I losing my mind? No, but what I will say is you might be hearing from your angel, your guardian angel. We all have those. And you don't, by the way, have to be Catholic to have a guardian angel. In all of my years of doing this work, I cannot tell you how many people have said to me, Denise, I cannot possibly have a guardian angel because I'm not Catholic. Well, you know what? Catholics don't have the corner on guardian angels. Now, granted, I grew up Catholic, very strict Catholic household, and guardian angels were part of the curriculum at catechism. They're part of what goes on at church, part of what was talked about at the dinner table. But nowhere was I ever taught that the only people in the universe that had guardian angels were Catholics. No, we all have guardian angels, right? They're guides that help us while we're having this human experience. Some people with tonal frequencies, I'll say to them, ask the question, what are you trying to tell me? What do you want me to know? What is the message? Sometimes the answers will come in some wonderful, wonderful ways. And Nikki is saying this, for me, it's connecting the dots. It's like pieces of a puzzle. Something's happening here in this reality, some happening in dreams or meditation, and the ability to pull them together. Yes, we have to pay attention. We've got to pay attention. How do we pay attention? Okay, so let me just say, Maybe you're having a really hard time during the course of your life. You know, we all have those times when everything just seems to go to hell in a handbasket and you can't win to save your soul. Ever have that happen? Anybody? Okay. And so maybe in the quiet of your heart, you're thinking to yourself, is there anybody out there anyway? Little Pink Floyd, is there anybody out there? I'm not feeling it. If somebody is out there, will somebody please give me a sign? Will somebody please let me know that I'm not alone, that somebody out there loves me and cares about me and is concerned with what's going on in my life? I'm a little bit scared right now. Well, we can ask those questions. That's great. But do we listen? Do we pay attention to the way in which the angels answer us? Hey, Jack Eppinga. Everybody who's enjoyed my teepee out and back in the Enchanted Forest, Jack Eppinga is the man that created all the teepee poles by hand for my teepee out back. It's good to have you, Jack. Sometimes the angels in those questioning moments, here's one of my favorite ways in which the angels answer me, if they're not just going to talk to me, because usually they'll just talk to me. Sometimes, though, I can just say, you know, really, where'd everybody go? Because I'm not feeling you, I'm not hearing you. And the next thing you know, there's a great big woodpecker coming out of nowhere, pecking at the bird feeder. Great, one of those great big ones, you know what I mean? The pileated, I think they're called. And you can't not hear them because everybody can hear them a mile away. And you walk out and there's a woodpecker and the woodpecker's kind of looking at you like, well, you rang, calling Dr. Bombay. You got the woodpecker, which for me, in the Lakota tradition, according to what I've been told, is a message from the ancestors. When I see that woodpecker coming from the direction of the west, of Sapa, the black color on the medicine wheel. Woodpecker, we hear you, Blue Thunder Woman. You're not alone. We're sending a woodpecker. Or, Nikki, you'll love this. What about those times when you ask the question, is anybody hearing me? Where are my prayers going? I'm putting up a whole lot of prayers. Where are those prayers going? Anybody even care? Am I talking to myself? Why have you forsaken me? Why have I been forsaken? And the next thing you know, you're walking outdoors and you see an eagle. Some people may say, gee, look at that eagle fly by. Isn't that something? Those who are awake, seers who are awake will say, look at that beautiful sign. I've just received a moment of grace. Creation has sent an eagle to me. And if nothing else in that moment, you and that being, that bald eagle, that golden eagle, right? Wambly Gleshka, that spotted eagle is saying to you, that being in the sky is saying to you, I see you. I'm here for you. The seer understands that that eagle is our brother and our sister, that we're related. And so we might say, Wopila Tonka Wambly, many thanks, eagle. Or thank you, Jesus, for that sign. I needed that, right? Namaste. Yeah, Jack is saying big medicine. That's right. It is big medicine when we see those eagles flying around, when they come to us. Sometimes the angels are smart enough to know, they really are, because they are intellectual beings. They're intelligent beings. For some people, it's easier to accept that an eagle, a woodpecker, right? Or a hummingbird comes flying right by your nose. Did you ever have that? Yep, right there, right by your nose. And you think to yourself, well, look at that little bugger. That's a brave little hummingbird right there. But did you ever just stop to think that maybe that was a message from Spirit about joyfulness? Maybe a reminder that you bring joy to other people? Right? Sacred encounters are all in the eyes of the seer, of the beholder. That's the secret to being awake. And it's exciting. Holly is saying, I once told my totem, the cheetah, that they were sleeping on the job. And the next day, a friend of mine who didn't know how I felt gave me a picture of a cheetah. Wowzers. Exactly, Holly. Exactly. That's how it works. And the person who is awake, who understands sacred, holy encounters, understands somewhere within your friend, or perhaps your friend was influenced, right? Oh, what a gift. Lady Hawk is saying, I stood looking at a crow at work the other day, trying to hear him. 5 were there and 1 stayed still. And we can ask the question, Grandfather Crow, Grandmother Crow, what are you trying to tell me right now? And you may walk back into your workplace and maybe somebody walks right up to you with an interesting message. And you think to yourself, where did that even come from? Why were you even inspired to say that to me? Well, I don't know, but I just felt like I needed to say that to you. And well, there it is. And I hope you don't think I'm weird. You ever have that happen? I do. Dana, I don't know why I'm saying this to you. I mean, sometimes what it is that I actually get text messages from people or notes on Facebook from people. I don't know why I'm going to say this to you, but or why I'm telling you this, but I just feel like maybe I need to. And it's exactly what I needed to read. It's exactly what I needed to see. Sometimes we are all that the angels have here on the earth plane, right? To express, to be the hands of, the eyes of, the heart of Creator here on the earth plane, because that's what we are. I happen to believe that. Sometimes it raises people's eyebrows when I say that. Sandy Herrick is saying, not you. Oh, God, Sandy Herrick. That's right. Sandy and I have lots of great conversations about these kind of things. So back to the Lutheran school. All of these kids, we had the best time. The parents kind of warmed up to me. They found out that I was normal, right? And afterward, there was a young man who had been sitting on my right for the entire evening. He looked at me and he said, would it be okay if I walked you to your car tonight? It's really, really awful outside. And would it be okay if I walked you to your car and scraped your car off for you? I'd really like to be able to do that for you. And he was so sweet, and he was wearing a camouflage jacket. And he was so quiet. And so as we were walking out, and I grabbed my coat and I thanked him. His name was Joseph. I thanked him for wanting to escort me to my car and get all the snow and the ice off. And he looked at me and he said, can I tell you something that happened to me tonight? And intuitively, I had remembered saying to myself earlier in the evening, there's one person in particular that you're going to be there for tonight. And this young man is that person, Dana. So full attention. And I said, well, of course you can tell me. And he said, well, I almost didn't make it here tonight. I almost didn't come tonight. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, just before getting ready to come here, he said, actually, I was going to kill myself. I was going to commit suicide. I had written a letter to my parents. The gun was loaded, my dad's gun. I know where he keeps it. So I took it out, and I was sitting on my bed and I loaded the gun and I wrote the letter to my parents. And he said, my friends here at the church told me that they were coming to see you tonight. And I was so depressed. And I said, well, Joseph, may I ask why you were so sad? And he said, well, my best friend died in a car accident 3 months ago, and I just can't get over it. I feel so empty. I feel so lonely. Like my whole life died when she died. I don't know how to explain it. And I just didn't feel like there was any purpose for me to be here anymore. He said, this is where the story gets really strange, though. And I said, that's okay. Tell me. He said, well, I had the gun in my lap and I was, having some last moment thoughts for myself. And all of a sudden, my entire bedroom lit up. My whole bedroom was like a golden light. He said, I've never seen a light like that before. And he said, the weird part was that there was a voice that came out of that light. And all of a sudden, the tears started trickling down his face and dripping off of his chin. And, there I was as well. And he looked at me and he said, that voice that came out of that light said to me, Joseph, it is not your time to die. You have things to do on the earth. You have gifts. You are needed. You must stay there. It's not your time. Go be with your friends tonight. And he looked at me and he said, I put the gun down. And I called my pal and I said, hey, can I still go with you tonight to the angel thing that's going on at the church? He said, so I put I unloaded the gun and I put the gun back where my dad keeps it. And I tore up the letter and here I am. He said, do you think that that was an angel that was talking to me? I said, what do you think it was, Joseph? He said, I think that that was an angel that was talking to me. And I said, I believe that you are correct, Joseph. That was a brilliant angel that came to you in that moment. Well, Denise, how does that happen? How do angels know? And I said, well, angels can feel us. Your guardian angel can feel you, can feel your heart, can feel your sadness, your joy. Your guardian angel knew, and your guardian angel arrived. And thank goodness you listened to what it was that your guardian angel had to say. And yes, you have things to do. It is important that you are here at this time. Sometimes, you're right, Kelly, sometimes when we talk about these subjects, we do have to refresh the screen, everybody. Sometimes the wattage in this room, the wattage of your emotions and your experiences, also, right, there is a lot of wattage, there's a lot of vibration, a lot of energy that goes into these conversations, and sometimes the screen will freeze. Sometimes it may slow down. But it's because of what we're talking about. It's the energy of this conversation. A lot of emotion when we talk about sacred and holy encounters. Tracy Civic says, and my heart melts. Yes. And Tracy, you've had conversations like this with people in your practice. Angels come to us in a variety of ways, whether they send a bald eagle, whether they send a little mouse. I'll just tell everybody this morning because you're all my friends, right? I love animals. You all know that I'm a sap. It's ridiculous. You also know that my house is, well, some people would say I'm a neat Nick. Just a little bit of a neat Nick, right, Kelly? Kinda. Well, this morning, when I woke up, oh, goodness. When I woke up this morning, I was in bed and my covers were up and I have this really fuzzy blanket that I like to sleep with. And right on top of my chest, nestled in the blanket, sound asleep, was a mouse. Sound asleep. And I looked at this little mouse, all curled up, sound asleep, sharing my favorite blankie with me, or I guess I was sharing it with her. I think it was a her. I named her Hermione. I usually name, every critters, they all have names. So it was Hermione, like Hermione Granger, right? Everybody's going, oh my God. So I'm looking at this cute little thing and I'm like, this is the cutest little thing I think I have ever seen in my whole entire life. How cute is that? You can't even make that up. You just cannot even make that up. And so what did I do? Well, I sat there for a moment. Yeah, Lady Hawk, I was like, I wasn't afraid of getting, rabies or any of that. I was looking and I thought to myself, the bravery of this little bitty mouse, I don't even know where it could possibly have come from, but there it was, all nestled up, snuggle wug in my blanket. And so I just scooped her up because she was sound asleep. Scooped her up, no fighting, no fussing, put her in a little cloth, took her downstairs. Todd was eating his breakfast and he said, what have you got? And I said, well, look. And so I took the little Hermione Granger outdoors where she could build a nice little outdoor nest and stay warm for the winter. So for me, that little mouse was more than just a little mouse that was brave enough to come and sleep with me. I mean, yeah, really, I can't believe I'm sharing this, but I can. So the message for me was quite beautiful, And for me, the message was, I immediately, Lily had sent a message to me in the morning and I said, well, you're not going to believe what I just woke up to. And I told her and she said, oh my God, you really are Snow White. Because all of the critters in the Enchanted Forest, I love them. And I just watched that little mouse sleeping. And I thought to myself, I must seem awfully big to that little bitty mouse. And look how comfortable and unafraid. And so for me, there was a message in, it's interesting as I'm talking to you all about this, I'm hearing the song, from church, Be Not Afraid. I am with you always, right? Come follow me and I shall give you rest, right? I'm hearing that as I'm talking about this. So that little bitty mouse taught me something this morning, and not just that, there was a mouse in the house. It was way bigger than that. It was a little sacred encounter that I had. Joseph, his encounter was clearly quite spectacular. And if anyone would like to share one of your encounters, that would be spectacular as well. Our loved ones who have crossed over do a fine job also of letting us know that they are with us. They do a great job. Sometimes it's in the dream time. Sometimes it's a visitation and apparition. I had a client late last night, a beautiful woman, whose mother just passed a couple of weeks ago from Alzheimer's. Her mother had Alzheimer's, been experiencing Alzheimer's for well over a decade. And this young woman, actually it was for 18 years, she had early onset Alzheimer's at 52, and she passed away at 70. And one of the things that my client talked to me about was feeling sad that she could no longer talk to her mother because her mother, having Alzheimer's, wasn't able to communicate the way that she had always been able to communicate with her mother. And I asked my client, and Stacy, if you're watching, I hope you are. It was a beautiful moment. I said, do you ever feel as though you can hear your mother talking to you? She said, you mean like right in my own mind? I said, yeah. Do you ever feel like you can hear her? And she started to weep and she said to me, Denise, I can hear her voice right now. And I hear her just like she's standing next to me saying to me, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And she said, Denise, this is crazy. How can this be? How can I be hearing this? To which I said, you don't have to be me. You don't have to be a medium, a seer to be able to hear your loved one. Sometimes we do hear them right in our own mind, in our own brain. That's not insanity. That's called love. We talked about that last week. That's love. That is not insane. When you hear your loved one say to you, I love you. If your loved one says to you, go blow up a building, okay, we're talking about something different then. But when a loved one comes to you and says, I love you, thank you. Thank you for helping me cross over in a good way. Thank you for helping me maintain my dignity during my illness. That is your loved one talking to you and telling you that. Sometimes people will say to me their loved one came to them in a dream. Sometimes the dreams at first can be frightening. They can be scary. And so sometimes I do believe that our psyche is working through some things when the dreams are scary. I always say to people, it's a good thing, when we're having loss, that maybe we also have a therapist, we have a counselor. And as this woman said to me last night, I consider you to be my soul counselor. And I like that. I like being thought of as a soul counselor. And oftentimes I will also hand a card, somebody to go see Terry Ruel or now Nicole Fix. Her practice is open and running as a therapist. And so I will send them to Nicole or Terry to work on the mind and the soul. But our loved ones, we have sacred encounters in so many ways. Margaret Spooner. Hey, Margaret. She's saying, at my darkest hour of pain after brain surgery, oh my goodness, I was visited by a ball of light and felt the most beautiful peace and comfort. Yes. Yes. And so, Margaret, going through something like that, what was your initial thought when this ball of light showed up? What did you think immediately? I'm curious about that. Well, thank you, Cindy Lynn. You really are. I like to, do soul work. Yes, balls of light, orbs of light. Spirit will come to us in those ways, orbs of light. Catherine Harrison is saying, oh, they help you find teddy bears. That has been missing for over a year, something they gifted you after they passed. Yes, our loved ones will help us find those lost objects, right? All of a sudden it appears. You ever have that happen? Something lost for a very long time, and all of a sudden we think, well, where did that come from? How did that get there? Sometimes it's just the intuition. Sometimes it's gentle, energetic nudges. But a substantial amount of my work is work that I do with cold case detectives, private investigators that work on cold cases. And I have been called out to scenes, where somebody has gone missing or where a murder happened. And they'll say, Dana or Denise, will you, help us pinpoint what went on? What are you picking up on? Help us with that. And so sometimes the sacred encounter is a feeling that I have. Maybe you need to look in that direction. I feel just over there is where you're going to find their body. I feel that just over there is where you're going to find evidence of the perpetrator. It's a feeling. It is a sense. Sometimes it is a voice that says, Dana, tell them to look over there. That's where they're going to find my body. Tell them to look in that direction. Right? Sometimes sacred encounters, Sandra is saying, sometimes they help us find our sanity too. Yes, absolutely. Yes, there's no doubt about that. Lisa is saying, I saw my mom who recently passed in a dream walking next to my dad who is still here and holding his hand, but he didn't know she was there. She smiled at me and knew that I saw her, and then she faded away. That is absolutely beautiful. Sacred encounters. In the dream time, the stuff that we are made up is stardust. It's God stuff. It's the great mystery. We're the great mystery in physicality. When the physicality goes, what's left is the great mystery, the stardust, and it continues on. And it communicates. It's intelligent. We are intelligent in our stardust. We are intelligent in our soul body. So is every living thing. And thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Yes, and so how can mom be walking with dad when dad is still here? Well, she's showing you how close she stays to him, showing you the bond of love that exists between them. How wonderful. And how beautiful that you just didn't write it off as, you had too many burritos for dinner. There are those who don't have the background or anyone to talk to about these things. And so they do write it off to having really bad sauerkraut or a lousy day. And they cannot possibly believe that that was a real holy and sacred encounter. And yet it is. Sacred and holy encounters are going on all the time. It's up to us to pay attention, to listen, to feel. Oh, we're having a great conversation. Katie Battle is saying, just before I go to sleep, or maybe I am sleeping, I feel or see light when the room is dark. Yes. The light is a vibration. Sandra Herrick would say it's an octave. It's a sound. It's an emanation from the heart and mind of creation. It's with us all the time. And sometimes it appears to us when we're most relaxed, like when we're getting ready to go to sleep or when we are asleep. Meditation, contemplation, a walk out in nature, being quiet for 5 minutes to give spirit an opportunity to talk. That's a big one. Margaret is saying, I enjoyed it, but I don't think I really realized the depth until I was no longer defined by the pain of the meds. And that makes perfect sense. Sometimes people can't understand the depth or the breadth of a sacred encounter until they are that much far removed from the pain of grief as well. When we're working through our grief and we have somebody to help facilitate that, sometimes we just need help facilitating it. I do a lot of work with Sandra Herrick, and I watch her, the way that she helps people through the process of grief. And there are many definitions and layers of grief. Whatever it is that creates a veil around us, whether it's pain, physical pain, mental, emotional, spiritual pain, the pain of grief can create a veil, almost like a wall, that until we work through it, the sacred and holy encounters really cannot be appreciated. Sometimes. Jacqueline Coster, the other day, there was a row of traffic. To get where I was going, I had to go around the block. I ended up behind a truck with the words, "You're needed" on the back. A huge smile came across my face and I was filled with joy. Yes. You ever get behind one of those cars that has the perfect vanity plate for a license plate, and you think, you can't make this up. You cannot make it up. There it is. Having gone the roundabout way to get to the message. One of the beautiful things about seeing, waking up and seeing the beauty where you see it, seeing the sacred where you see it, is every time you see the sacred and you say, I see you, you become more acquainted with and accustomed to the vibration of sacred and holy encounters, and all of a sudden you begin to have more of them. It's a stream of them. Not to say that sometimes things don't go quiet. They go quiet for all of us. And sometimes in those times of quiet is when we're supposed to be in times of reflection, sorting things out, having a sacred encounter with ourselves. It's not always about sacred encounter with others. Sometimes it's a sacred encounter with our own being that's being asked for. Rather than looking outside, Spirit sometimes in the silence is saying, Dana, it's time to look inside. That's tough. That is not for the faint of heart, weakened spirit. It simply isn't, right? Okay. Lisa is saying, and mom must be here right now. I have her dog. As I was writing my message, her dog jumped up and started pacing back and forth. My other 2 dogs are sound asleep. Yes. You know, our animals are wonderful at letting us know when something is going on in our home, when there's a sacred encounter. All of our animals can feel because they're very sensitive. They're not preoccupied with the grocery list or what's going on Facebook or Twitter, right? Our animals are just these pure beings. They're just pure beings of love, in my mind. Even the little brown mouse, just a little pure being of love. They want to be loved just like we want to be loved. In that place of just being loved and furry and feathery, they're very sensitive. They're very sensitive. And they will pick up on the presence of those that have gone home. They will also pick up on the presence of beings that have never incarnated in physicality. So they may also pick up on angelic beings, spirit guides, allies, ancestors of the mythological kind. We have those. We have ancestral totems, ancestral family totems, right? Which is why in some realms there are coat of arms, right? There are tartans, but there are these amazing dragon. You know, for Todd, the Somerville clan. The Somerville clan is embraced by the dragon. In fact, he just had a huge, upper sleeve put on yesterday of a Celtic knot and a dragon head, representing his ancestral totem. All of those beings that we don't always see in physicality yet exist in non-physicality are also very sacred beings. Whether they come to us from the realm of mythology, the realm of the angelic, the realm of archetype, right? Oh, Tracy is saying something here. My friend and I were going down the road a couple of weeks ago, and all of a sudden, energy slammed our chest. We noticed an accident was 4 cars ahead. A light shot out of that area, and I knew it was the deceased man. I feel we were out there to guide him in some way. Yes, 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 Tracy. Thank you for bringing that up. Sometimes a sacred encounter can be exactly what Tracy is saying. How many of us drive by an accident, a traffic accident, maybe an accident that involves a vehicle and an animal, whatever it happens to be, or a motorcycle? What do we do in that moment? We think to ourselves, geez, I can't believe out of all of the millions of people in the world, I'm the one that drove upon the accident. I'm the one that was there at the scene. How did I even end up there? Well, perhaps it's because it was a sacred moment in which you were supposed to be there. I had a young man at work when I was still at the newspaper. The year was 2011, and he came into my office, this beautiful executive office. It was just lovely. And he came up to me, and I had these chairs in front of my desk, and he was just weeping, which was unlike him. And I said, Scott, what is the matter? He said, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. Denise, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. I said, well, what just happened to you? He said, I was on my way to work. He said, I live over there by Muskegon Way. I was on my way to work, and all of a sudden I came up on an accident. And there wasn't anybody in the area but me. And there I was. And there were these 2 young girls that had been thrown from their vehicle. And he just wept. And he said, the one girl, I knew that she was gone. I felt for a pulse and she was gone. And the other girl just looked at me with wide eyes. And he said, why me? Why was I there? And I said, well, what did you do in that moment? He said, the only thing I could do, I sat with that girl who was looking at me and I held her. I cradled her, and I told her I wasn't going to leave her. And he said, I dialed 911 and the police came, and he said the whole time when I was holding her, Denise, she died. She died in my arms, Denise. Just now, just a few minutes ago, I didn't know what to do except come to work after I talked to the police. Why me? And I said, Scott, why not you? You stopped, and you were the last person, the last face that young girl looked at, and it was the face of compassion and the face of a man who said, I am not going to leave you. That was a sacred moment, Scott. He said, I don't know about any of that, Denise, but I don't think I'm ever going to be the same. And I don't know why this happened to me. Well, a couple of weeks later, and yes, I sent him, to see one of my friends who's a therapist that's trauma. There's a trauma there. And he came up to me and he said, I have to tell you something. I received a letter from the mother of that young girl that I held as she died. And the police officer at the scene told her what happened, that I held her and she died in my arms. And the police officer contacted me to find out if it would be okay if they contacted me. And I said, that would be fine. He said, now I think I understand why that happened. I received a letter from that young girl's mother thanking me for holding her daughter as she died. It made her feel better to know that her daughter didn't die alone, that somebody cared enough to hold her and to comfort her and to be there with her. Sometimes the brightest lights are called into the darkest places. And that is an example of that. So yes, sometimes we get called into the darkest places to be the light in a sacred encounter. And sometimes when we're going through the dark night of our soul, sometimes an angel appears as a stranger. Sometimes an angel appears as an animal who finds us. How many of you have animals in your home that are angels pretending to be a dog or a cat or a bird or a reptile? And you know that that's not what they really are. They're angels pretending to be that. I have that in my house. I sure do. Oh, hey, Kelly. Yes, exactly. Tracy, it was a blessing for that girl and a blessing for Scott. His life was never the same. And I think that that's probably the point of it all, is that our life is never the same. It's all in how we look at it. The teaching of the coyote teaching. Coyote's the trickster. Coyote tells us that our teachers come in many forms. Some of the forms that they come in are very pleasant. They're wonderful, they're warm, they're fuzzy, and sometimes our teachers come to us. Hold on to your hat. It's all in how we look at it. How awake are we to see what's really going on? And as Sandra said on the Sandra Herrick show, sometimes a sacred encounter happens so that we can bring to a conclusion a situation, a relationship, a thought form, a habit, an addiction. It's a great show. If you didn't get to see Sandy's show tonight, please do visit the archive. It's fabulous. Sacred encounters are happening right here. All of us are in sacred space, even though each and every one of us is in our own private sacred space. We have agreed on an energetic level to spend time with one another talking about this subject matter. Sometimes angels are those people who appear all of a sudden, and you look back and they are nowhere to be found. Ever have that happen? Ever encounter somebody who's there in the physicality and all of a sudden they're no longer there? I have. Sometimes sacred encounters seem so bizarre we can hardly believe that they're really happening, right? For those of you that have ever been inside my INIP, my sweat lodge, you know that some of those sacred encounters are sacred of the otherworldly kind, very loving, right? Not everything that is loving, kind, and compassionate and sacred looks like you and I. Oh, goodness, here we go. Kelly. I started feeling like this was a joke. I'm the one people who are having a horrible day in the store always. I'm minding my own business and the person next to me will stare at me. I will say hello and they will begin to tell their tale or cry or ask for help. I finally realized it's just one of my purposes in life. People who hang with me say, "What is the deal? Why does this happen to you everywhere you go?" Yes, if you are one of those grocery store helpers, you know what I'm talking about. It's exactly what Kelly's talking about. Grocery store, drug store, department store. And all of a sudden, no matter how crappy of a day or testy of a day you may be having, all of a sudden somebody's staring at you. And you can feel it. And you turn and you look and you just feel like, oh, maybe I just need to say hello. And not just say hello, but wait for them to say hello back and then maybe say, "How are you?" And actually take the time to listen to them give you an answer to that. "Well, you know, I'm having a really rough day today. My husband just died. I'm having a hard time. This just happened in my life." For some people, the only therapy they need is to have a sacred encounter with somebody who has a pair of these and is willing to use them to listen, not to fix, not to repair, but simply listen, maybe give them a hug, give them an energetic hug, and be compassionate. One year I was in the grocery. Elevator help, that's what I call it. Help them get to the next floor. I love that, Lady Hawk. One year I was at the deli, and there was a woman in one of those motorized carts doing her shopping at the deli. And it was the holidays. Tough time for people, the holidays. Just is, for so many reasons. And I noticed she had this big, beautiful poinsettia pin on. You know how some older ladies wear those great big, beautiful pins for the holidays and such? Well, she had one of those on. And just like Kelly, I just had this feeling that I needed to say something. So she had on her little holiday blazer, the big poinsettia pin, driving her cart, getting her bologna. And I looked at her and I said, "Your pin is extraordinary. It's so beautiful. It makes me feel festive. Merry Christmas to you." And she looked at me. I'll never forget it as long as she lived. And she said, "My husband Harvey gave that to me. He gave that to me last Christmas. Isn't it beautiful? He died recently. So I wear Harvey, with me. I wear him on my lapel. This pin makes me feel like he's right here with me." And as she was talking clairvoyantly, I could see, well, yep, Harvey is right there with her. I didn't say that, of course. That is not appropriate. That is not appropriate. But I did look at her and say, well, it's a beautiful poinsettia, and you look radiant. And he must have loved you very, very much. And I can tell that you really loved him. And then I heard about how he was a World War II veteran and that they had been sweethearts. And for those 5 minutes, I sat and I listened and I smiled. And by the time she got her bologna and I got my whatever it was I was there to get, I hugged her again and I said, "Merry Christmas." Sometimes we are the source of the sacred encounter. And that's a choice that we make. Not to solve the problems, just to be there to listen, to be present, to be very, very present. I think that's probably the best gift that we can give each other, is to be very, very present. That in itself is sacred. Friendships are sacred. This work that we do as a medium. I remember Sister Irene Mary saying to me, "The work that you do is soul work, Denise. Always remember that this is sacred work. And every encounter that you have with somebody who comes to see you or calls you to talk to you, that is a sacred encounter." When I go to hospitals, if I'm in a hospital, I was just talking about this to somebody who works in the hospital. And I said to her, I really wish people could see what I could see when I'm at the hospital. Because it's not just orderlies pushing carts or pushing gurneys. Those orderlies are always accompanied by angels. Always. Beings of light are right there with them. Beings of light all over the hospital. Being there with, the person that they've been given to guard, to guide, been given charge of. This is one of the things that happens when people get ready to cross over. And this is kind of where I wanted to wrap up the show tonight. For those of you that wonder, so what happens when our loved one passes? Are they alone? Are they talking gibberish when they talk about so-and-so being in the room, or all of a sudden they can see great Aunt Mabel, or maybe their mom or their dad is all of a sudden present in the room? And sometimes I get asked this question, were they hallucinating, Denise? Mom kept talking about the fact that there were children in the room. This is the conversation I had last night. No, they're not hallucinating. There's a sacred encounter that's going on. The sacred encounter is this. When we come into this world, we do not come in alone. Our angels, our guides, all of that, creator of all things is with us. When we leave this world, all of our loved ones who are on the other side, our guardian angels, the creator of all things, all of creation, related to us and our journey, are waiting for us. The final sacred encounters that we have, I believe, as we are getting ready to transition, is when our loved ones come into the room. My client last night said, my mother kept saying to me, can't you see all the children? Aren't they beautiful? Look at all the children in my room. Right? A woman who was unable to speak because of the Alzheimer's, and these miraculous moments of clarity, telling everybody in the room, can't you see the children? Aren't they beautiful? Look at the children, day after night after afternoon. Denise, who were those children? I said, well, sometimes angels disguise themselves as children. Sometimes angels present themselves to us as strangers. Sometimes, as we're getting ready to cross over, angels can appear to us as animals, as bright lights. Our loved ones come to welcome us home, no different than when we are born on the earth plane and there are people to welcome us. The final sacred and holy encounters are spending time with those that we love. Recently, yesterday, actually, a student of mine, oh my goodness, Rachel, love that woman. Marilyn, if you're watching, you know who I'm talking about. Every year that I taught at the Great Lakes Retreat, she was always the first one to sign up for my workshops. And Kelly, you remember me, you helped me hang the beautiful Christmas ornaments that she created for me, all of the colors of the 4 directions. Rachel created those for me. Well, Rachel found out 2 weeks ago that she had 1 month to 2 months to live. Well, I did not hesitate in immediately sending her a letter, telling her what her life meant to me, what the gift of her life meant to me. I'd only ever seen this woman in the physical 5 times. 5 times. For 5 years annually at Olivet College. And yet there was a connection. And she was not going to leave this earth plane without somebody reading to her how I feel about her. And with Marilyn Lewis, there you are, Marilyn, you know, yes. So I wrote her a love letter. I put it in a card and I sent it. And it was probably received by her the day before she passed. That is a sacred encounter. Sometimes they happen up close and personal, and other times the sacred encounter is taking the time to write a love letter, a thank you letter. Yeah, Marilyn, she did become your second mom. Oh my goodness, 70 some years old, and I'm telling you what, she had more adventure in her than people a fraction of her age. Part of what I loved about her. My goodness, she was going strong. Nothing stood in her way. And if there was an adventure to be had, she was all about it. All about it. So last year, the year before, when Bev Borman said to me, oh, Rachel made some, Christmas ornaments for you. And Bev dropped them off for me. They hang on my tree. They're hanging on my tree right now. So sometimes the sacred encounter is the last encounter that we have, that our loved one has. And by the way, nobody ever dies alone, ever, ever. Nobody, not even the little critters on the side of the road. No, 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 no. Nope, no one dies alone. Cannot happen because we are creator in expression. Kelly always says, oh, look, they're sleeping when they're on the side of the road. They are sleeping. Their soul is fully awake. Yes. So with that, everyone, thank you. Thank you for the blessing that you are to me. Thank you for the sacred encounters that our souls have each and every Tuesday or Wednesday evening here. Thank you for that. Thank you for the sacred encounter of allowing me to write a book and you wanting to read it. It's a sacred encounter. I think to myself, my goodness, what is that weave? Yeah. She was 81. Yeah, Rachel was 81. And you would have sworn she's 31 because she lived life. She lived every single ounce of her life and every breath of her life. Yeah. With that, everyone, blessings be. Be awake, be aware, see, and understand that you are also sacred. And those that meet you are having an encounter with the sacred. Good night, everybody. Until next Tuesday.